Hi there, welcome back. I have just a tiny little task to do, but I thought, you know what? I'll turn on the camera, I'll say hello, or good morning, or good afternoon, or evening. Hope you're having a good day. Thanks for joining me. I'm Catherine. If you're new here, welcome. This is all a part of creating an artisan journal out of an old book, which is what I do. And right now I seem to have found myself with 3 books on the go, which I don't often do. And so I thought I would let you inside my brain as I do this. So what I do is, these are the templates I use. Everyone's different. This is the way I find works best for me to prepare to sew the signatures onto, to create the text block, to put it back into the old cover. So, and I always write the numbers on because, yes, I have sewn them in the wrong order before, and they go backwards for me. In how I sew them in, because think about it, like for here, this is for the beacon reader that's going to become the forest lore. So I just wrote beacon on the back because I've got 3 on the go here. This will be the back of it. This will be the front. So I need to know that my first signature goes in, will be sewn in here, because think about it, when I flip it over and it goes in the book, I need my first signature to be on the left side. So I go ahead for my own mental well-being and write my numbers. I already did the numbers for, this is for the roundabout papers, and this is for that little book that was from 1887, and right now I still seem to be just calling it 1887. So I just thought I'd let you see another, get inside my brain, and there we go, and let you see what it is that I do and why I do what I do. So I've got fabrics ready. Let me move these ones out of the way. Let's deal with roundabout first. Then we'll deal with these others. You may notice something similar about these fabrics that I've chosen. My go-to fabric for the back of, to hold together signatures, I would say 95% of the time, is a neutral beige cotton. And I'll tell you why. Hold on, I'm going to go grab one of my books that's already made so you can see, and I'll show you. So here's this little book I finished a while back. I've still been trying to decide whether I want to use it or whether I want to put it in my shop. It's a sweet little journal, and it's not very big. I just think it turned out nice. And you'll see here I've got this neutral beige fabric in the back. So the signatures, let me find in between, there we go. The signatures are sewn in, and there in the back is the patterned beigey. Oh, that's the paisley one. I love that fabric. It's just shades, creamy shades of beige and cream and ivory. And it just, there's a little bit of a pattern to sort of be a bit of a distraction. And I just find that because I really lean towards making a journal geared towards journal writers, And if they happen to want to use it to be gluing in things and making it scrapbooky kind of keepsake journal, that's fine too. It still works. But for someone who wants to use this to actually record their thoughts, maybe their favorite poems, maybe, who knows. You'll see here, do you see the shades that I just find over the past few years, for now at least, I just this strong yearning and enjoyment of. And I just find that when that just blends and recedes and doesn't take over. Now, it can be very tempting to want to use fun fabric in the back when you're creating your text block. It's and I have been known to do it, especially when I make a little golden journal, a little golden book journal. Fun fabrics are just great because I use a lot of colorful pages if I make a little golden book journal. I'm having a hard time getting that out. And once in a while, yes, I want to use, if I'm going to have a strong color theme, if I'm doing a garden book that's mostly greens and lilacs, you know what? I might be tempted to use a fabric that has greens and lilacs in it. But 95% of the time, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to my trusty neutral beiges with a bit of a pattern. I don't even want it plain. I find I like the pattern. Gives a bit of camouflage that it's actually fabric back there. Let me find. I'm looking for my signatures. Hold on. Okay, so let me show you what my brain is thinking and what my brain sees. These are going to be the signatures for the roundabout papers. It's the start. And so they will be going in the roundabout template. Will be going on the back. We're going to do it in a second. So it will get glued onto there. Actually, it's going to be this fabric, but this one's here. We'll use it for now. And then these are going to get sewn on like so and become a text block. Well, think about it. There's the first signature. So when it gets opened up, there's just going to be that little hint down there of a bit of a brownie pattern, brownie creamy pattern. It's not too distracting. So hopefully whatever actually becomes of these pages, something beautiful or handwriting or collaging or both, this is where your eyes are going to go. They're not going to go down that cavern and go, what is that down at the bottom? Whereas, say these were the signatures for the Forest Lore book. Wouldn't it be tempting to use this fabric for the Forest Lore book? I mean, come on, pine cones. Wouldn't that be tempting? And you might be tempted to think, oh, that would look beautiful. And if that's your jam, do it. Because that's the fun thing. The artist is never wrong. It's your work. But for me, if I were to sew my signatures onto this fabric, and now I open up and I'm going through my pages, I'm sewing, I'm filling in, and then I open up in between, my eyes immediately go, oh, what's all that dark green down there? Instead of my eyes looking at the pages. The only time I think using really patterned, different colored fabric in the back, the only time I like when it works, and of course my Crafty Crush is the queen of this, I've seen her do it many times, and it's spectacular, is when your end papers are also covered in the same fabric. So there's continuity of that pattern that goes from inside cover along under your signatures and out and over to the other side. Do you see what I mean? I really like the look of that. But this is all personal taste, okay? So that's the only reason I'm sharing it with you is it's just my personal taste, why I do what I do. So that's why I thought I'd show you what I'm thinking. Why she always use those boring beige? Well, I do it for my own sanity. Is why I do it. So I will choose fabric. I want about 1/2 inch above because I'm going to be gluing it over like that, and 1/2 inch below. So I'm just going to approximately do that and tear. I'm really careful with my threads nowadays because of my little friend, a thread in the digestive system. A furry friend, cat or dog, can be quite dangerous. So I'm very careful nowadays. With Dot, I didn't have to be so careful. Dot really had no curiosity about this room. She had a little bed just at the doorway, and when we would come up together, her first thing was to head to her bed, close her eyes, and zonk out for however many hours I was in here. So this is the nice side. We're going to flip it over. And then this is the side that's got your pattern on it for sewing. And you will be doing pokey holes at all the cross points. Wherever these lines cross, there will be pokey holes for the sewing. For my journals, again, 99% of the time, the type of book I create, I do a 6-hole running stitch. I find that's more than sufficient to hold the odd-sized papers and envelopes that get sewn into my signatures. And I do have a routine pattern for how I do mine. I always start from 1/2 inch down from the top. So here we go. Hopefully you can see it. See how that's 1/2 down from the top? That's where my first stitches will be. And then I go 1 inch. So there will be an in and out stitch. And then 1/2 up from the bottom, another inch. There's another in-out stitch. And then somewhere in here, I just find where the center is. And I'll do 1 inch out, so 1/2 inch out from wherever the center was. It's really goof-proof. So that's how I decide. The only time I would alter this is if it was a small enough book that maybe it really only needed 2. Or if it was a much bigger book and actually needed 4 of these. I don't do that very often. They're trickier to sew. A really big journal that would be about this, well, as however wide my camera screen gives you. They're hard. I find they're harder to sew. You can iron these if you want. I find that once everything's glued down, you really don't notice the little folds and dents. It all just gets ironed down. Paper's going to be glued on and that sort of thing. So I do swirly circles in the center. I use an acetone-based glue for this because you're gluing paper to fabric. So 3-in-1 or Fabri-Tac, either one of those. I usually do the center first because if it's thin, it's going to start drying, and I would rather have the fresh wet glue around the edge. So that's the last part that I will glue. And there we go. And then I just sort of guesstimate the center of it. This part does not need to be precise. Now another nice reason to have the pattern on is sometimes this glue can blop through and you can see wet spots that will just, even after the glue dries, it will show through. Well, most likely it's not going to be that noticeable once all your signatures are sewn in, unless you happen to be, you're just doing one or two big huge fat signatures, then you're going to see a lot of space in the back. But if you're like me and you're doing a lot of signatures, 5, 7, 9, 11, 15 signatures, you're really not going to notice a glue blop if it's gone right through. You're not going to notice it, but the little pattern will help to camouflage that too. So those, let that dry, and then those will get poked with the pokey tool. So here we go again. This one is going to be for the 1887 book. So I love this one. It's got stamps, Charleston, and postcards. I bet this is, I bet it's Tim Holtz fabric. And if this one came from Happy Mail, whoever sent it to me, thank you. The other ones, I treated myself. We have a really sweet, tiny little nook of a quilt shop in town. And after I used up all of my fabric and a goodly portion of Nancy's to make masks at the beginning of the pandemic, when masks were hard to find, and our hospitals and nursing homes were running short, I used up all my fabric making masks. So I treated myself to some really nice fabric at that quilting shop. So a lot of this is from that. So this is just, again, the width of these wings, it doesn't matter. I can shorten them in if I think they're too long, but too long is just going to mean that you've got a more securely anchored in text block. Same with here. I mean, you mostly just need about a 1/2 inch, but it doesn't hurt if it's longer. I'll probably trim that off. Doesn't need to be that long. I'll just use scissors rather than trying to rip it now that I've gone and glued that paper on. There we go. So that one is ready. And then we'll do for the beacon reader. Now I think this one's a little too long. I'm using, yeah, that doesn't need to be that long. I'm using scraps and leftover pieces here whenever possible. I have a bin of just neutral colored fabrics, and I have a bin of colored fabrics. So I should show you. Hold on. So this is my go-to bin of my neutral fabrics that just have little flowery pattern on that one. And this one is got postcard written on it. That's some more of the postcard. Oh, here's the paisley. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? Just a very pale paisley. And sometimes I'll use fabric like this and I'll tea dye it and make it a really blotchy tea dye. I love this one. I don't have very much of it, so it's very precious. It actually is a map of Paris, I believe. And it's just pale, pale pink and cream. Oh, I love it. So, so these are that's my neutral bin. And I have a bin about this size of fun colored fabric. I'm going to leave this one out because I may still use it as some fabric snippets in the Forest Lore book. So let's get this flipped over and we'll get the Forest Lore one glued in. I should have left this laying on its side. It really needs a bit of acetone added to it. It's starting to thicken up. Oops, there we go. This one, I have to make sure that I've got it correctly. Both sides are very similar, and I don't think it would necessarily be a horrible thing if I happened to accidentally do it inside out. Alright, another thing I do, see, this is what I will use when it's time to poke the holes into the signatures. And in order to make sure that they still marry up properly, I write top and top. And that way, just in case my math is a little bit off, I at least know that the holes will marry up when I go to sew my signatures onto this anchor of the text block. I don't know, I forget what the official term is, but you know what I mean. So this needs to dry, this needs to dry. Now, hopefully this one's dry because we can just do some little hole poking, which is very satisfying. But there's no point doing it if it's wet, because sometimes what it will do is you'll just poke your threads through. I'll show you though. What you do. I always get out my trusty kneeling pad, garden kneeling pad that I got from Dollarama. Some people will use an old book, an old telephone directory, if you can still find one, and just start going through, and wherever there's the crossing of the lines of your pencil, that's where you're going to poke holes. So that's upside down there. There we go, top. Doesn't matter. So at least all these for all three will be done and ready to go when it's time, hopefully this week, to start sewing signatures together into text block. And I think every journal maker finds their own comfort for how thick, how big the hole is they want for sewing. And depending on the threads they use, some people use a really heavy hemp that's wax covered, quite thick. They're going to need to poke really far through and use the thicker part of their awl. I have found that I just hold this finger about a 1/4 inch away from the pointy tip, and it just takes me as deep as I need it to go, because my finger will hit the board and I know that that's as deep as I want it. So rather than holding it up here, I hold it by the actual pointy tool. That's good. I don't like these things sticking up. So that's when I'll usually just grab either a bone folder or just something firm. Sometimes the back of I have a martini olive pick up here that I really love. Oh, there it is. This is good for it to push paper back in. But in here, okay, I can show you. See, you can tell the glue. I was a little bit impatient. There's a little piece of thread right there that poked through because I was impatient and I poked while the glue was still wet. That doesn't hurt a thing, because think about it, the whole fabric, it's all being glued down, so it's just going to be a nuisance when I sew. So usually if that does happen, I just snip it, because it's all been glued. And there we go. And that's how I do it. And then, if, for example, say this was one of my signatures and it was ready to start poking the holes in. Imagine there's 5 folios all together. Right now all there is this ticket. That's all I know is going in there. But how I would use this part of it that I made at the same time is I line that up to the top of the page, fold that, I've got my handy dandy paper clips in place, and then I lay it down, close it up, and poke it through. I'm not going to right now because it's obviously not a completed signature. So that's why this template is needed, and you should just make it at the same time and get it over with when you're getting your fabric and your text block holder, whatever it's officially called. Someone out there knows the name. Someone will write it down in the comments for me, because I'm having a brain cramp. So that's it. So that's why, if you've happened to notice, she always uses really boring fabrics in behind. Yeah, I do. But usually it's because the journal I'm making is geared for a journal writer rather than a scrappy kind of journal person, for the most part, I think. And it's going to have tea-dyed, coffee-dyed, brownish, ivoryish papers up against it, and I want it all to complement each other rather than having something way down in the cavern glaring out at me. So thanks for joining me today. Hopefully that maybe was a little bit of help to you. You do you. You don't have to do this. This is just me. There's no right or wrong in the art world. There's just creativity and different ways of approaching things. Take care. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk soon. Bye.